Hello upgraders and welcome to another episode of the Upgraded Ape Show. I'm your host willpower, and today's show is brought to you by the upgradedape.com store, where we have a whole bunch of vitamin supplements, food, hardware to monitor and measure your biohacking and your progress, everything from vitamin D to pulse oximeters to the Basis B1 band. The goal of the store is to just hold and sell everything that we think at Upgraded Ape is going to improve your brain and improve your productivity. The guarantee at the store is that if it doesn't upgrade your brain or doesn't double your productivity, we'll give you your money back. No questions asked. So it's totally risk-free, and yeah, I'd love you to check it out at upgradedape.com. On today's show, we have Yuri, who is an ex-football player or soccer player for the Americans listening, and recent author of the All-Day Energy Diet. Yuri explains how we can improve our energy levels day to day, how we can improve our mental focus. We discuss willpower and its fundamental role in eating to increase energy. And we talk about the one habit each morning that can make a massive difference to the amount of energy you have for the whole day. So without further ado, let's get on with the show. Hi guys, it's Will here and welcome to the Upgraded Ape Show. Upgrade your brain, get more done, kick life's ass. Hi Yuri and welcome to the Upgraded Ape Show.
Thanks for having me, Will. It's great to be here.
Awesome stuff. Well, today we want to talk about your book and a bunch of other stuff. But first, can you tell us a little bit about your 10 million goal and how you came about that in the first place?
Yeah, so just so the audience knows, it's not $10 million, although that'd be nice. It's 10 million people that we want to help by 2018 live a healthier and fitter life. And the reason I decided 10 million is because everyone else is setting like a million. So I'm like, let's 10x it. So I decided that'd be a pretty ambitious and lofty goal. And I just find it's something it's kind of a nice kind of beacon to work towards, because a lot of people I find have settled for a life of mediocrity where they're kind of going through life in third gear, and they maybe really haven't experienced life in fifth or sixth gear. And I want to help them do that, because I know, first for me, I lived 20 years of my life with really low energy and a lot of health issues, and I saw the light, on the flip side of that, and it was just, it's been incredible as kind of a juxtaposition to that. So I know there's a lot of people out there who kind of don't know how good they can feel, and maybe have lost hope of where they can get to. And I want to help them realize that that potential that they have, and it doesn't take years and years and years. It can be turned around very quickly, and that's what we're really happy and kind of pumped up to do.
And what made you see the light, as you put it then, and change your, I guess, diet and lifestyle to increase your energy levels?
Well, for me, it was actually going back to nutrition school, because I was growing up, my goal was to play pro soccer. So I trained and competed a lot, and I definitely put in my 10,000 hours plus in my teens. And thankfully I was able to play pro for a couple of years in my early 20s. But during that time, like all the way through my teenage years, the fact that I was fit and active was masking a lot of my health issues. So I had really bad digestive issues, bad eczema, asthma, really low energy, and I thought I was just very tired because I was playing so much, and it really had nothing to do with it. I was sleeping 10 to 12 hours a day, falling asleep after school. Really spent more than half of my life sleeping, which is not normal. So that all kind of culminated in the fact that when I was 17, in my last year of high school, I started to lose my hair. And I was like, well, this is not normal for a 17-year-old. I have no kind of hereditary hair loss that I'm aware of. And within the space of about 6 weeks, I lost all of my hair, scalp, eyebrows, eyelashes, the whole bit. And I went to my doctor, and the doctor diagnosed me with an autoimmune condition called alopecia. And unfortunately, other than the diagnosis, they really provided no value. So I was like, well, we can do nothing for you other than inject your head with cortisone. And I said, no, thanks. And for about 8 years, there was no solutions that were really anything at all. It was just like, we can, lather you up with cortisone, inject you with cortisone. There's really nothing we can do other than that. So I didn't really find that very satisfying. And I stopped playing soccer when I was 24, and I came back to Toronto, and through a series of events was introduced to a natural nutrition school. And this is actually after I had graduated with a degree in kinesiology and health sciences from the University of Toronto, which is one of the top 20 universities in the world, and still having no idea about how to eat properly. So I would like to give you an idea, like I would go to class and I would stop by the local Second Cup, which is like almost like a Starbucks, I guess, and I would grab a donut and a very sugary drink. And that would be like my morning routine, like just walk into class, get the donut and sugary drink. I would have a Subway sandwich for lunch, loaded with sodium and whatever else they put in it. I would thrive. I would easily eat, 2-3 bowls of cereal a day, cheese and toast I could survive on, no problem. And that's just kind of like a nutshell how I ate. I didn't really eat a lot of fresh foods, not a lot of vegetables. And so when I was introduced to this natural nutrition school, it was like mind-blowing for me, because I was like, I've never learned this stuff ever in my life, even being exposed to some of the top professors at the university. And in one day, I had these epiphanies, and I was like, wow, this is kind of, mind-blowing. And I asked my professors at the nutrition school, who are naturopathic doctors and other alternative healers, I asked them, I'm like, do you think my diet could be in some way, shape, or form related to the fact that I have this autoimmune condition and all these other health issues? And they said, absolutely. So I was like, whoa, that's pretty cool. So you're saying that, if I change the way I eat, I could potentially reverse all this stuff? And they're like, yeah, that's pretty much what you're here to learn. So it was just an amazing experience to go through that schooling process, again, kind of re-educating myself to now understand how food operates in my body, how health really works above and beyond just exercise and fitness. And it was life-changing. I was able to, in the space of a couple of days, cleaning up my diet. So kind of removing a lot of the junk, bringing in more whole, fresh foods. My energy really kind of went through the roof. I had more mental clarity, more focus. My asthma and eczema went away after a couple of days. My digestive issues went away after a couple of weeks. My hair started to regrow. And it was pretty profound. So I was very inspired and very pumped up to share this message of good quality kind of fundamental nutrition with the masses, because I was like, wow, if I didn't know this stuff and I thought I was somewhat advanced, there must be millions of people who don't. So that was the big turnaround for me.
For sure. That sounds fascinating. It's always good to hear people's stories as to why they're in the position that they're in. And I just want to talk a little bit more about what we need to do to eat, and probably looking more at people who think, perhaps where you were when you were playing football and you doing your degree, you think you probably eat reasonably well, but you're still bouncing off the walls of energy, and you require that sugar during the afternoon to kind of keep going. What are the main couple of things that listeners can look out for, and what changes can they make as opposed to someone who's just eating crap?
Yeah, so the real big takeaway people need to understand is that the very things we turn to for energy are the things that rob us of energy. So caffeine and sugar are the two biggest culprits. A lot of people start off their day with coffee, or they rely on coffee to kind of pick themselves up after lunch or whatever point of the day. And the problem with that is that caffeine is a drug. It's the number one drug in the world in terms of its consumption. And like with any drug, it causes physiological things in the body to happen that cause dependency, tolerance, withdrawal, all sorts of symptoms that are related to cocaine use, for instance. But in terms of energy, the problem with caffeine, and sugar does the exact same thing, so I'll just talk about caffeine for a sec. So caffeine is a stimulant, and it stresses the adrenal glands. It's a form of stress that the adrenal glands are then prompted to kind of shuttle out these adrenal hormones like adrenaline and cortisol. And their main goal is to prepare the body for fight, right? Or fight or flight, sorry. And when that happens, there's a lot of things that happen, but essentially what happens from a sugar perspective in the body is that they break down stored energy into blood sugar for immediate use. And so we have this spike in blood sugar. And that's the same thing if you just have sugar by itself, or if you have sugar will also impact the adrenal glands in the same way. So now you have this rise, in blood sugar, and that's a dangerous thing. So your body secretes a hormone called insulin to take that sugar out of the blood and store it. So now you have a problem of actually storing more sugar, which is not good in terms of fat gain. But also you have this crash in sugar, crash in blood sugar, which makes you feel like you just hit it and entered into a coma. So then you feel like really down, and then you kind of like, whoa, I got to come back up. So you seek out more sugar and more caffeine, and then you go through this up and down roller coaster throughout the day. And that's how a lot of people's day-to-day existence is going. And that's a problem because, we look at, 5-hour energy drinks or Red Bull or Monster, and it's sad to see that a lot of the younger people, like, teenagers and early 20s, people who are in school, are relying on this stuff because they're using this stuff as a means to focus in school because they can't focus without it, because they're addicted to it pretty much. And these very substances are causing tremendous damage in their bodies in the long term. So caffeine and sugar are two things we definitely want to avoid. Thinking about, I like to get people to think about energy through tranquility as opposed to stimulation. So instead of turning for a coffee or a sugar or a sugar fix, think about something that's going to calm your body. And this has nothing to do with diet for a second, but for a lot of people who are always kind of going, racing, doing like nonstop busy work, one of the best things you can do is actually take 5 minutes to step away from what you're doing and sit down in silence, close your eyes, and just breathe deeply for 5 minutes. And that's kind of like recharging your batteries. It's like plugging in your iPhone, and it does, I would say, personal experience, 1,000 times more good than any number of espressos will ever do. And it helps to clear your mind. So it helps de-stress your body, clears your mind, helps you to come back to whatever else you're doing. Let's say you're at work or something, in a more focused and zen manner. And the whole idea with what I talk about in the all-day energy diet is that the energy you experience through stimulation is very erratic. It's very up and down, and it's nowhere near as profound as what you can experience through tranquility, which means that eating foods that obviously nourish your body as opposed to stimulate your body, and then doing things, whether it be deep breathing or meditation or spending more time in nature, that calm your body in such a way that it's able to sustain its energy throughout the day. And when you experience that, you never want to go back to what you experienced with caffeine or sugar. It really is it was a big, profound aha that I had when I experienced this, more than a decade ago. And I never actually drank coffee. Like coffee was never even I don't think I ever even had a sip up until that point. But my body was just so inundated with toxic junk that it didn't even know how good it could feel. So obviously we can talk about specific foods, but that's just kind of like a framework in terms of thinking about energy. As instead of looking for stimulants, think about tranquility and calmness and nourishment as a way of sustaining your energy throughout the day.
For sure. Well, a lot of what you said is spot on, but it's very easy to think and pretend that you're in that kind of manner, and you're doing those things. But what can we do specifically? What can the listener take away from the show and do today, whether it be diet or meditation or something along those lines, to make a difference from today towards the end of the week? Yeah,
I think the simple, most powerful thing anybody can do is to start their day with a green juice or a green smoothie. And I should say like a freshly made, like at home green juice or green smoothie. So I'm just going to assume that most people have a blender. Not everyone has a juicer. So let's just talk about a smoothie, for instance. I think, even if you did nothing else to your diet, like let's just say you had McDonald's 7 days a week, which I hope nobody does. Let's just say that was the case. If you just started your day with a green smoothie, there's a lot of benefits. And I'll give you guys a recipe if you want here. So if you take like a head of any green leafy vegetable, so it could be kale, Swiss chard, spinach, a dark lettuce, put that into a blender with 1 banana, 1 apple, 1 pear, about a half a handful of cilantro, the juice of 1 lime, and then about 2 cups or 3 cups of water, depending on how liquidy you want that. And then just blend it all up. That's it. If you want some protein in, throw in some hemp seeds, and you're good. And what that'll do is that'll give you I would say about 3 servings of green smoothie. And it's going to give you about 4 to 6 servings of vegetables and fruit right there. And that's really important because most people in the Western world are getting less than 2 servings of vegetables and fruit per day. And that's kind of alarming because we're supposed to be getting 8 to 10 for optimal health. So if we think about energy as we can attack energy on a number of different levels, but let's think about just from a nutrient perspective. If we're not getting the nutrients that our cells require, we're not going to be feeling very energized. So by simply making a green smoothie in the morning, now we're getting in, let's say, 5 or 6 servings of vegetables and fruit right there in the morning. We're now inundating our body with nutrients that it really is not used to and is craving. So that's a huge plus. Second is you start your day with a good behavior, which builds momentum for the rest of the day. So if you start your day with unhealthy food, that sets you up. You're like, well, let's just throw in the towel. The rest of the day's a write-off. We'll start fresh tomorrow. Whereas if you start off healthy with a green smoothie or something like that, it just, mentally, it's like, wow, like I don't want to sabotage this, great thing I started with. So it really propels you to continue making good decisions throughout the day. You're also getting in more water. Water is a very overlooked component. A lot of people, suffer from dehydration, which leads to headaches and fatigue. So simply by eating more fresh foods, for instance, in a blended form, you're getting more water in. But most importantly, I talk about in the book, the reason it's so important, the foundation of anybody's diet from an energy or health perspective, or even weight loss, needs to be green vegetables, and vegetables pretty much of all colors. And the reason for that is because when you eat more vegetables, they contain minerals like calcium, potassium, magnesium that are alkaline once metabolized. And essentially, I'm not going to go into the science here, but what that essentially means is that they allow your blood to maintain an ideal pH. And that's important because the pH balance in your blood is really critical, and it's very rarely discussed. And it's actually taboo to some degree in a lot of medical discussions, even though there's a lot of research behind it. But the whole idea here is that if your blood is slightly alkaline, which is what it needs to be, your red blood cells, which carry oxygen throughout your body, are able to flow freely to distribute oxygen to the cells. It's kind of like, it would be like driving at 2 a.m. on the freeway, as opposed to driving in rush hour traffic. And most people's bloodstream is kind of like rush hour traffic. Due to the foods that they're eating, their blood has become very sluggish and very acidic, which means that oxygen is not able to go throughout their body very efficiently. And oxygen is the basic input for energy production inside the cells. So if our cells don't receive oxygen, then they're not going to be producing energy. You're not going to be feeling very energized. If your blood is sluggish, you're going to feel sluggish too. So just going back to this kind of simple action, starting your day with a green smoothie gives you that alkalinity, those basic building blocks to help maintain a healthy bloodstream, as well as the nutrients, as well as the water, as well as a lot of other phytonutrients that are going to keep you healthy. And there's also been a lot of research that the green plant membranes, there's actually special nutrients in there called thylakoids, which have been shown to decrease hunger and decrease cravings, which is actually pretty profound. So there's a lot of benefits to having greens, and that's why I think that the single biggest thing anybody can do is start their day with a green smoothie like that.
That's awesome advice. And just to recap on that, I start my day with a green smoothie, but also a coffee as well, which you may or may not agree with. But once you start off your day right, in the right mindset and the right mind frame, and when I get up, I'm kind of in a blur anyway for the first half an hour while I'm actually making the food and consuming it. So it makes no difference. It's not like later on in the day where it might be more of an effort.
Yeah.
You do feel like you start the day right and you go on to eat healthy and not be as tempted towards crappy food throughout the day as well.
Yeah, totally. And there's a lot of research too on willpower and the fact that the more decisions that we make, we're all making decisions and resisting temptation throughout the day all the time. And there's a lot of research that has shown that by the end of a day, and this is probably, I think everyone can relate to this, by the end of a day, the last thing you want to do is figure out what should I make for dinner, right? Like yet another decision. So starting off your day with a healthy option is great, but it's also the time of day where you have a little bit more kind of brain power or willpower to figure out what you want to make. But I think one of the most important things for people to understand is that, it's not about the food, it's actually about the habits. And if you can do things that are going to make all of this habitual, where there's no thinking involved, that's where the real long-term success will come. So having a plan in place, and by plan, I mean having a meal plan of exactly what you're going to have for breakfast, lunch, and dinner throughout the week, set ahead of time, is one of the simplest and most profound things you can do. I'll give you an example from working out. If I go to the gym without a plan of what I'm going to do in the gym, it's a waste of time. Like my workout is 50% of what it could be. If I do the simple act of writing down, let's just say a simple workout, I'm going to do squats, I'm going to do pull-ups, 6 reps of each, whatever it is, and I just have that written down before I go to the gym, what that does is it focuses me and it structures my workout where I know exactly what I'm doing in the gym. I don't have to waste my time. The same thing with our meals. If we know that it's Sunday and then tomorrow when I get home from work, it's Monday evening and I'm going to be having, let's say, steamed or baked salmon on top of a bed of greens, and I don't have to, like, it's just like, it's set. Like, I don't have to do anything other than make it, which will take 10 minutes. That's a huge win, because if we don't have that plan in place, what ends up happening is we end up getting home, we're tired, and that's the other reason we want more energy, is so that we're not making bad decisions based on fatigue. But we're getting home and we're just ordering takeout because we don't want to have to make another decision, and we kind of see the task of figuring out what to eat, then making it, as this huge Himalayan mountain, when in reality it's a very small molehill, as long as we have that plan in place. So I think having that plan is critical to long-term success.
For sure. Well, let's change gear a little bit and look at the world of supplements. So there's an absolute shed load of supplements that promise you energy, promise you this and that. Are there any recommendations that you have that you believe do actually make a difference and live up to the hype?
Yeah, there definitely are. I recommend a couple of them in the book, but these are things that are, again, they should be supplements, not, they can't replace food by any means. So food should always be the foundation. I think, everybody can be well served by having maca. Maca is a Peruvian root vegetable that's most commonly found in powdered supplement form. And it's an adaptogenic food, which basically means that it allows your body to better deal with its environment. So it's been shown to help rebalance hormones, to improve libido in men, to help exercise recovery, to reduce stress. Really, really kind of across the board, a lot of benefits with maca. I think another foundational one would be a good B complex vitamin. So if you're taking a multivitamin, cool. You may want to, I don't know, it depends on how much, obviously, the quantity is for the B vitamins, but we're talking about energy specifically. A good B complex vitamin can make a big difference, because the B complex vitamins, B12, B6, all that stuff, are fundamental for the health of your nervous system and your brain, but also for the health of the red blood cells. They help to ensure adequate and healthy formation of your red blood cells, which is obviously very important for oxygen transport. So a good B complex is really powerful. I think as a fundamental kind of everybody should use type of supplements as well, it would be a fish oil, unless you're on a blood thinner, and obviously you want to double check with your doctor. But I don't know of any contraindications, even though there's some studies that show that men with fish oil supplementation increase the risk of prostate cancer, which I think is blown way out of proportion, because there's thousands and thousands of studies that show the benefits of fish oil, omega-3 specifically, in their anti-inflammatory benefits inside the body. So they're amazing for your heart health, for brain health, for the health of your cells. And so I think those are 3 really good fundamental kind of supplements that would benefit most people.
For sure. I think the only thing I would add to that potentially is vitamin D, just due to all the hormone and genome regulation of it.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, totally. I definitely recommend people try to get their vitamin D through obviously fully exposed sunlight. It depends if you live in the UK, maybe that.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you don't get much of that in Leeds in the UK.
A little bit harder. But yeah, a good kind of vitamin D3 supplement is a good idea as well, for sure.
Cool. Okay, Yuri, can we do some quick fire questions and learn a little bit more about you?
Yeah, let's do it.
What time of the day are you most productive?
Definitely in the morning. I would say between 9 and 12 is my best time.
What is your morning routine generally?
Well, it's changed. This is one of those things where I'm kind of like hopeful, but I've got 3 boys under 4 years old, so my morning routine has kind of been shot a little bit. I was getting up at 6, doing an hour of kind of my own routine, which consisted of some type of activity. So it might be a rebounding, like jumping on a little trampoline or foam rolling, 10 minutes of yoga, something along that line. I'd follow that up with 10 minutes of meditation, followed by 10 minutes of kind of journaling, gratitude, visualization, journaling, stuff like that. And then I would finish off with about 15 or so minutes of reading. And that was kind of my morning routine. So that's kind of my ideal morning routine. And it's obviously not as consistent as it should be because it's a little bit of a crazy place in the morning here.
That's fascinating. That's very, very similar to my morning routine of a very quick breakfast. Then I'll do some kind of exercise, meditate, and then journal and read, and then get on with my day, which is usually writing first thing.
Nice. Yeah, it makes a huge difference.
For sure. Well, you mentioned journaling and being grateful. What's one thing that you're grateful for today?
I'm definitely grateful for my kids. I mean, as much as any parent complains about their kids, they're also a blessing. And I think, I try to really, catch myself just enjoying them, looking at them, and being appreciative of the fact that we have these 3 little miracles in our lives.
That's awesome. If you could recommend one book to help Upgraded Ape listeners kick more ass, what would it be? Other than your own. We'll come back to that at the end.
Yeah. I think a really cool book is, it's a book called, it's two that come to mind. One is called Influence by Robert Cialdini. It's kind of like more recommended on the marketing side of things, but it's actually a really good book to understand how human beings behave. And I think it's a really fascinating read. Another one is called Predictably Irrational, which is another amazing book. I really like both those books just because I really enjoy figuring out why we do what we do.
Awesome. This is, again, uncanny. I've literally got Influence on my desk at the moment. I've read it once back in my sales days. Just reading it again, just to get I think it's good to go over every now and again, just as for an overview.
Yeah, totally. That's awesome.
Well, Yuri, before we wrap up and we learn a little bit more about your book, we've got one final question for you. So Upgraded Ape listeners are here to upgrade their brains so they can get more done and kick life's ass. If you could go back in time and talk to your younger self, what would be the one bit of advice you'd give yourself to help him kick more ass in the future?
Stop eating so much bread.
Yeah. Well, that's short and simple. Because I know there's evidence for and against, and it's kind of up in the air as far as I'm concerned, of gluten. Eating bread isn't great for you. There's loads of issues with it. But gluten specifically, are you for the idea that gluten can cause like autoimmune issues and things along those lines?
Yeah, for sure. And I really do believe that that was part of the reason why I developed an autoimmune condition, because I ate copious amounts of breads, pasta, cereals growing up. And I thought that was, because that's what I thought athletes ate. And researching this over the past decade and a half, there are no redeeming qualities to bread or gluten other than the fact that it's so ubiquitous in our food supply. And it's a very addictive substance. That's why it's very tough for people to get off bread as kind of a craving, because it does stuff to our reward center in our brain to make us crave that. So I think pretty much all human beings would be better served by eating no bread or much less bread than they currently do. And not everyone responds the same way. Not everyone is gluten sensitive, but I don't think that there's really any benefit to having bread in anybody's household.
For sure. I think you put that really well in that, yeah, I don't think everyone's gluten sensitive. And I think there's a massive fad at the moment of people going gluten free. But you're right. What's the point in eating something when it's not going to do you any benefit? You should be eating to fuel yourself and give yourself energy.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Yuri, I've had a great time chatting to you. Can you tell us a little bit more about where we can find out about you, the projects you've got going on, and also your book? Yeah,
so the best place to find out what I'm up to is at yurielkaim.com. That's spelled YURIELKAIM.com. and that's my personal blog, my personal hub. And then for the book, you can go to alldayenergydiet.com.
That's awesome. Well, we'll link to all that in the show notes. And yeah, thanks again, Yuri, for coming on the Upgraded Ape Show.
It's been a pleasure. Well, thanks for having me.